Man, I get the feeling there's just something missing.
Is it your alarm clock, maybe? I mean, it has been a month since the last episode.
My alarm clock has been missing for like 2 years thanks to all these chickens. Wait a minute, a month? No. Wait, we're not getting into that rabbit hole. No, it's something else. What is it?
Oh, Eddie left too.
He what?
Yeah, said he's off to the shops to buy some smokes again.
Oh, okay. Well, while he's absent, let's dive into themes of absence and talk about when things are just plain missing on this episode of Music Arcade. Wait, doesn't Eddie have asthma?
Oh, yeah.
Well, crap. Hello, everyone. I'm Galen, the Sound Guy Firestone, and welcome to this newest episode of Music Arcade.
Hello, I'm Ranakel, and indeed, there is no Eddie for this episode or for the few episode. He has an increased charge of work that is going to get a lot of his attention away from us. It's tragic, I know, but wish him all the best.
Yep.
And he's going to be back in full force in a few months. Until then, it's gonna be just you and me talking about some music.
And maybe the occasional guest star.
And maybe the occasional guest star. I may have looked into it a little bit already.
I'm sure you have, and I have as well.
Excellent.
And with that, we have ourselves I believe this was actually recommended by Eddie with this episode, I think, wasn't it?
Nope, that was me.
That was you. Never mind. I apologize. Apparently my brain is also missing today, which has been a recurring theme the last few days.
Yeah, it sounded like that. Well, at least you sound vaguely cogent this morning, so let's ride that wave.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Let's talk about things that are missing before my lucidity goes missing.
Excellent.
I'll tell you what else is missing, and that is the English title of this song, which is a real shame. We got a song from Chrono Cross here.
Yes.
And it's a song that I have to admit I actually used to play on piano, and you'd think I'd remember the title of this damn song.
Yes. The literal translation from the Japanese title there is in the playlist is Garden of God.
That sounds right. I think that's correct.
But don't know the official English translation of it.
Yeah, and trying to track down the Chrono Cross soundtrack in English has been very difficult lately for some reason. It's been scrubbed from YouTube pretty hard, except for the specific YouTube music topic, which is all in Japanese.
Yeah. And on the counterpoint of that, it's like Chrono Cross's soundtrack is the kind of soundtrack that has like 17 different arranges and versions, so tracking it on VGMDB isn't exactly a walk in the park either.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, what's missing right even before we talk about the song itself or the themes involved in it is information on the song, which I find actually kind of insulting, because, like, how is it this hard to find this song?
Yeah, especially for a game that... Oh no, never mind. They did do a Steam re-release. It is accessible.
Uh-huh.
But that's not always a given, and like... I don't know, the defensiveness of soundtrack and content around video games is a thing.
Yeah.
A thing that gets in our way.
More often than not, yes. So, the song itself is kind of, I would argue, a baseline of what you think of when you think missing, or at least absence. It's very melancholic, kind of longing.
Yeah.
This is before a fairly major plot twist in the game, like long before, so at the time you still think you're doing something not negative. I don't know.
This game is so very full of twists.
It is very full of twists, almost to its detriment, because the plot does not stand up under its own weight, I think.
Yes.
It's the same problem that Heroes had as a TV series, which is we're just going to throw all the twists of the universe at at the viewer and just prop everything else up as best we can in between those twists.
Yeah, and like, congrats, I didn't see it coming. I don't know where we are anymore.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like, well, this was certainly a swerve that I don't understand the context of in any way, shape, or form, so I guess it's just business as usual. Let's continue.
Yes.
For the record, I like Chrono Cross.
Same.
But I'm not immune to its flaws.
It's like we can like things and admit that they're not absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it's almost like we're adults or something.
Crazy.
Right?
But yeah, this song is very low-key. It's got a bit of an ethereal feel to it with the harp and the voices. And yeah, very low down, and I can absolutely see that applying to mourning, essentially.
Yeah. It's a little more sad, I guess, than usual. The rest of this playlist does not follow this line very much at all, which I think is good, but I feel like getting the most obvious out of the way early is a way to go here.
Exactly. Got a baseline for something that's solemn and that reflects the kind of feelings that go around when somebody's missing.
Yeah.
Somebody near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, I guess I gotta ask about this next song, because what's missing here? This one's just a straight-up banger.
Well, what's missing is the 8th beat every time.
Oh, okay, so, alright, that's correct. Okay.
I went with a more structural approach for this one, and first because the contrast is pretty great. This is Konga Kappa, the King Konga boss fight theme from Crypt of the NecroDancer. And it's very dancey, of course, because it's NecroDancer.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes without saying. If NecroDancer wasn't dancey, that'd be a failure of a song at that point.
Exactly. And so the fights tend to have a little bit, the boss fights anyway, tend to have a little bit of a gimmick to them, which can be to their detriment when it comes to the alternative soundtracks. Like for a couple of the full soundtrack changes, the level soundtracks change, but the boss fights remain default because the structure is very much important, and that is one of the primary offenders, because the gimmick in this one is that the enemies go in a conga line, you follow the rhythm of the song, but every 8 rhythm, whenever there's an absence, whenever there's a gap, you do not move and do as if there was no rhythm there, because if you do, you take double damage whenever you get hit during that missing beat.
Got it. That's I mean, for a action rhythm game, that is a cool gimmick. I like that.
Exactly. And there's just something about how you go along the rhythm and freeze for a while and go again that helps underline the rhythm that is there, you know? Like, I think that was my main point by bringing this song early on, is that something that's missing isn't just nothingness. It can elevate what's around there, it can kind of be its own presence by being conspicuously missing. So,
yeah, providing contrast is major.
Exactly.
I remember, I'm not sure how many episodes ago it was, but I brought up Battery by Metallica, which has this, like, slow, almost, like, this entirely acoustic intro before it just goes hard on the thrash metal. And it's the same kind of concept, like everything you expect in a metal album is flat out not there in the intro to the song, and then it goes. And frankly, it makes the song sound even harder as a result.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great technique. It's worked very well.
Yeah. I'm into it. And yeah, in general for this song, even without the gimmick that animates it, it's just fun and dancey. And
Oh yeah.
And like it, you hear it more often than most of the songs in the soundtrack because of the special stages of the boss track. But it's not like it's an unwelcome arrival. It's just fun.
Yeah, the song itself is fantastic.
Oh yeah,
I love the arpeggiation towards the middle to the end of the song. It's just really smooth.
And it kind of teaches you how it works because you don't have any text tutorial or anything.
Right.
But the stops are very clear at first. Like the first couple of stops, there's almost nothing. And then they allow themselves to have some instruments go on and fill that gap. So it's not just nothing, but by this point, you've already got the larger rhythm in mind. And if you look at the indicator at the bottom of your screen, you can absolutely see that there's a gap every 8 beats. Now then, let's move on to the next track, which also dives in irregular rhythms.
It does. So, my first thinking about something being missing was the immortal line from Silent Hill 2, "There was a hole here, it's gone now." I use that line kind of as a meme clone. I'm not sure what the exact wording is, but I kind of use "there was an X here, it's gone now" as sort of a construction that I think is funny. But I didn't really want to dive into Silent Hill 2 specifically because, one, everyone and their kid sister's been talking about this, and two, Silent Hill as a franchise actually kind of revolves around missing things.
Yes.
And I kind of am like, remember how good Silent Hill 4's music was, even if that game wasn't so good? I have a soft spot for that soundtrack pretty good, so I went with this one instead, Melancholy Requiem from Silent Hill 4 The Room, which has no shortage of missing stuff as well. Like, the main character can't...
I never played it, but...
Alright.
On paper, it looks so interesting and kind of ahead of its time when it comes to the kind of horror that indie horror games would put out eventually.
The main thing that held back the game was honestly the combat system. It was not fun. Combat in that game really was not fun. While the exploration was really cool, there's a couple of, some of my favorite sequences of the entire franchise come from that game, as long as you're not fighting anything.
Yeah, and honestly, that's probably one of my favorite songs in the episode. I really like it. It's disconcerting, but also beautiful in a way.
Well, I mean, Akira Yamaoka's good at that combination of stuff. Like, that's something he specializes in.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of missing things just built into the tapestry of the game. The main character himself is technically missing because he can't leave his house. Or at least he can't until the beginning of the game, which is kind of a weird take, but whatever. His, neighbor/girlfriend goes missing. His landlord is actually James Sunderland from 2's father, and James is missing.
Yeah.
Being missing is part and parcel of the game itself, and in fact, the big bad of the game, I forget the guy's last name, but his name is Walter something, is a serial killer who is supposedly executed, but then his body goes missing, and he just starts showing up again.
Huh.
So, it's just really wild how that, as a game, just revolves around everything being missing and trying to find that thing.
Yeah, you talking to me about it kind of reminds me of that one TNG episode where Crusher goes to another dimension, and it turns out that the universe shrinks and shrinks until there's basically nothing but the Captain's helm.
Yeah, even Picard eventually disappears, and she flat out asks the computer, "Then what am I doing here?" And the computer can't even answer.
Yeah, and she asks what the universe is, and it answers a sphere around 300 meters wide.
Uh-huh. That was a great episode.
Yeah. Like, figuring out that the rules have changed and trying to decipher all of that. So, by the way, did we mention that the song in question that you picked is Melancholy Requiem?
I did mention that, yes.
All right.
I said the name, I thought. Didn't I?
Well, in doubt, it's said now.
Well, when in doubt, it's said now, yes. Melancholy Requiem from Silent Hill 4, The Room. Which, again, is a game like... I don't know if there's an easy mode, but if you're going to play it, play with the combat down to minimum, because it does not matter at all, but the game itself
Yeah,
is...
or maybe with cheats to give you infinite damage or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. Like, don't worry about the combat, worry about the vibe, and the vibes are there. That was a very, very cool game, story and vibe-wise. And,
Good.
Again, the Yamaoka soundtrack really helps elevate that, because if there's anyone who's a master of vibe, it's Akira Yamaoka.
Yeah, like, this song, again, it makes you think like there's not just something wrong, but, like, it's not just one thing that went wrong, it's that things have changed and you're not used to them the way they have become, kind of.
Yeah.
It's like you wake up, you open your windows, and there's just a building that was there in front of you that isn't there, and you're like, what? And then you look at the reflection of the sun and the consequences of... and it all compounds, and I feel like this music has this compounding weirdness into it.
Yeah, exactly. And it just works. It just
Yes.
It's hard for me to talk about the song itself because Yamaoka style is so specific, I guess. Like, there isn't really anyone else who could do what he does. He's very much like Yoshitaka Hirota in that way, in that they kind of have a style that's almost impossible to imitate effectively. On the subject of not really able to be imitated effectively, but often parodied, let's talk about Solid Snake.
And indeed, let's talk about, namely, the Metal Gear Solid main theme. And I am saying that in a vague way on purpose, because a big part of that main theme is missing now.
Yeah,
There's a story to it.
Okay, well, here's my take on the song, is that it does not sound like one song listening to it like this on the soundtrack version. It sounds like several different songs stapled together.
It absolutely does. And the thing with that is that there were more songs as part of it originally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the story here is that the main theme from Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 had among its theme one part that went na 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 na, and so on and so forth, which is very iconic and marked a lot of memories. And then during the press tour for Portable Ops, apparently, from one source I read while delving deeper to make sure I got my story straight, there was a Russian game magazine that interviewed Hideo Kojima, and along the interview they brought up a recorder or something and said, by the way, have you ever heard this song? And this song was Winter Road by Georgy Sviridov, written in the 1970s, which was written for a documentary, I believe. And that song, very similar to that part of the original theme, main theme for Metal Gear Solid.
Oh, I was wondering why this was on the playlist. I'm like, what game is this from? That answers that question.
It's there because this is what's missing from the main theme. Because he was kind of ambushed by this question and by this fact dropped publicly, no less. And basically, the song has been changed and kind of wiped for the record due to understandable possible accusation of plagiarism.
Huh.
Yeah. And so, like you said, it isn't really weird in the song itself because it's already a succession of different movements that sound almost like different songs.
Yeah.
But I've heard somebody say it in a way that I related to, which is that when the theme gets to a certain point after the more action elevation of it, I hear in my head the version of the song that isn't allowed to exist anymore.
Huh. There's gotta be a mirror of it somewhere on YouTube. I kind of want to hear the main version.
There absolutely is. It's not that hard to find, but because the tape thankfully keeps circulating.
Good.
Yeah,
I mean, kind of good. I'm very much of two minds on this. On the one hand, plagiarism sucks. On the other hand, preservationism is awesome.
Exactly. Which is why, like, I'm not blaming the team for having backpedal on those soundtracks very hard, because these are very serious accusations that they've taken seriously.
Which is, to their credit. Hideo Kojima is very similar to, say, Quentin Tarantino in that he likes taking elements of a bunch of different things and mixing them together.
That he does.
So,
very much so.
It doesn't surprise me necessarily that Kojima may have unintentionally gotten caught up in this. Obviously, he's not a composer himself.
Yeah.
But saying, hey, make something that sounds kind of like this, and the composer takes that too far.
And even without being a composer, he is the kind of creator that likes to have a hand in every aspect of his game. I remember in particular in the lead-up to Metal Gear Solid 5, he took part in editing and picking the music for the trailers.
I believe that entirely. Yeah, no, he's very much an auteur, for better or worse.
For better and worse, I'd even say.
Sure. Yeah, you know what? Yes. I have a healthy respect for Hideo Kojima, but his stuff can be hard to play.
It sure can.
But
yeah, in this instance, I think, like, it came out while I was still looking for tracks to put in this episode, and having a part of a song missing in a way that's nearly demonstrable felt too good to miss on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if the song itself still works.
Yeah, no, the main theme's plural. I refuse to dignify this as a single song.
Yeah, no, like, it goes essentially tactical and espionage and action, and each of those has a part of its song.
The soundtrack is good. Even without the missing pieces, it's good.
It is. It really sets the tone very well, and it puts you in the mind to be Solid Snake, or whoever is the protagonist this day.
Well, if that's Metal Gear Solid 1, then it is Solid Snake, yes.
Yeah.
I think at this point we've had more games starring Big Boss than Solid Snake.
Yeah, especially if we count non-Solid game.
Yeah. Well,
but before we lose ourselves in making a precise count,
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
How about we move on to the next track?
Well, this one, despite being about someone who's missing, and who has been missing for a while, also is kind of defined by what will be missing because of what is present. This song is half composed by perennial punching bag Motoi Sakuraba. I say partially because this one also has Goshina on there, and the end result means I can't really bring out the Sakuraba beams because this song's goddamn great.
That the song being Zaveid the Exile from the Tales of Zestiria soundtrack.
Correct. The other thing that's interesting is we don't actually know why Zaveid is exiled or missing at this point. That takes the sequel but prequel Tales of Berseria, which came out after Zestiria, to actually explain this.
Ah.
And this is one of the only songs from Zestiria to actually repeat in Berseria, because when you fight Zaveid, and of course you do because it's a Tales game, and of course it's going to play his music. But you know what's really missing that neither game thought to explain?
What is really missing?
Zaveid's shirt. Because when I ran into him in a bar in Tales of Berseria, I'm like, wait, you have a shirt now? When did that end? Because you didn't have a shirt several hundred years later when Zestiria happens.
Well, maybe he was a bit warm in whatever void he was exiled to.
Apparently that void was just the overworld, because he just sort of hangs around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he never really goes anywhere. He just sort of hangs around and is a troublemaker until he gets recruited by Sori's team.
I see.
But what he is exiled from is the Malakim culture, which this is going to take way too long to get into. And I don't really want to go over the main story. The song itself is...
compose ourselves.
Yeah, the song itself is extremely breezy.
Yes, it's very open like that.
Yes, it's got a very cool energy to it. I have to wonder what it would sound like if he ever got his shirt back. And honestly, the fact that this song is on the Berseria soundtrack, which is solely by Sakuraba and does not have Goshina's involvement other than this song, kind of shows the power that Goshina has these days as a composer, because Zestiria has probably my favorite Tales soundtrack other than the other one Goshina composed.
Goshina does good stuff.
He does very, very good stuff. And I don't want to knock Sakuraba, because obviously Tales of Destiny 1 is an incredible soundtrack. Obviously, Tales of the Abyss is an incredible soundtrack.
And honestly, this track, it does the job very well, and of course you can see the offer in any track, but it's not a track that screams I'm a Goshina track as loudly as some of his other work can at times.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I think that's almost to its credit, because this whole soundtrack was a collaboration between the two, and it sounds like something fairly distinct from either, which is kind of a miracle.
Exactly, like, it's not this plus that equals exactly what you expect. It's like they decided to swerve in a different direction and see what was there, kinda.
Yeah, but unfortunately that means that when we get to Berseria and Goshina is not involved in that soundtrack, his presence, or lack thereof, his missing presence is very keenly felt. And I still am, like, not down with much of Berseria's soundtrack as a result, because a far inferior game is a far superior soundtrack for reasons that I genuinely don't get how we got here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, the way things turned out.
Yeah. But in Berseria, this song does play, and we get that one brief glimpse of that just wonderful, wonderful combination of talents. I wish these two would...
an old theme for a surprise return is such a powerful weapon.
It can be, yes. I will admit it's one that, in particular, Infinite Wealth tried to weaponize, but, in the case of Tales, they never quite got this one right, but,
yeah. I think it's closer to that time in Like a Dragon where they went with the correct pick for the Jungi fight.
That is true. Yeah, I guess it did start there, huh?
Yep.
I remain very happy about that decision, and that's basically the same decision here, other than the whole prequel shenaniganry going on.
Also, no shirt in both cases.
Also, no shirt in both cases. You're Wait, Jugi had a shirt on for that fight.
Oh yeah, he was in the mole outfit. Yes.
Yeah. He's kind of pseudo-shirtless throughout much of Yakuza 6, but that's a different Jugi.
Yeah, no, like, the prequel has no shirt and the sequel has one.
Yeah, this went the other way around in Tales. The prequel had a shirt and the sequel, where he's a main character, did not.
And they say video games can't surprise us anymore.
Huh? Alright, let's get to something a little less complicated. But,
yeah.
This is a soundtrack you come back to a lot. Like, this one's turned up a lot on this show.
Yeah, because, I mean, for starters, it's very good. At least I like it a lot. And it's very unique, I think. And
It is.
That is the Anarchy Reigns / Max Anarchy soundtrack.
Yep. And what's missing here is very obvious.
Yes, because that's kind of underlining my point, is that every time I've brought that soundtrack before, I brought up a version with lyrics.
And my response has been pretty much universally, whack MC.
Yeah. And I like it myself, clearly. But that isn't to say that there isn't an instrumental version that's available in the game. In fact, it's the one you hear most of the time, because basically what happens is that you have the soundtrack, the music that happens during the level, that's the instrumental version, and then it escalates to the version with vocals during the boss fight. A kind of similar situation happens in Metal Gear Solid Revengeance. No, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance.
Right.
Sorry. Where most of the boss fights you hear a version of the boss track without the lyrics, and then it escalates during the final phase of the boss fight in this instance. And this escalation tends to be like, it's sensible when you're in the action, when you're in the game itself, but when the soundtrack lingers on after you've played the game, the part where I'm returning to is most often the climax, you know, the part with the lyrics where it's full on firing on all cylinders and all that. And this reached a point, given how long ago those games came out, where when returning to the instrumental version, that again is the one you hear of the most during the game,
right,
it feels like there's something missing. And of course, this is the soundtrack version still, so there's no sound effect and all of the dialogue and all that happening during the action, but it's still a point where the version with the lyrics, with the rapping in this instance, goes and kind of supersedes the instrumentals almost.
Yeah, you see, the thing is, from a game context, I fully believe everything you're saying here. But from a soundtrack, just listening to it, my first notes were, and I quote, "This hook might be good with a remotely competent rapper. The beat is carrying all of this weight."
Oh. Honestly, having your perspective on it is so cool, too.
Yeah, again, I'm not playing the game, so I don't understand the context, and Lord knows, context can change an opinion of a song entirely.
And that's kind of my point in bringing that song in the first place.
Yeah.
The vocals are missing for me, but they're not missing for you.
No. In fact, listening to the instrumental version was, for no surprises, my preferred version. And then when I listened to the real version, the first thing out of the rapper's mouth is, "Guess who's back?" And I'm like, yeah, I don't have to. I know you're here. I don't know. I don't know. I do like this song quite a bit. The instrumental version. It's got a really cool groove.
Yeah, like the beat isn't. It really has this kind of almost party feel to it, you know?
Yeah.
Like it goes hard, but in a way that makes it clear that you're having fun.
Yeah. I will just say, I don't have a whole lot of love for the MCs on this soundtrack. I've been very open about that. That's not new. However, I will say that musically, this was probably my favorite of the ones from the soundtrack that I've heard. I think this one, they kind of do the best. I'm starting to wonder if there's a mixing problem in there, if the guy's just too dry or something, or I don't know, but...
Yeah, or just too emphasized, because, again, it's an escalation that's not that long in the course of how much you're listening to the track in-game.
Yeah, that could also be the case. It's hard for me to put my finger on. I will say, like, I would like this hook a lot if it had the right energy to it. I feel like the energy on the hook as a song is very underwhelming. Like, it doesn't feel as hard as it should be going.
Yeah. It's not really angry.
Yeah.
In a way.
It doesn't sound confident enough to be a proper brag rap either. Like, that's kind of the part of the problem. Like, it's very restrained in the weirdest possible way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking when I went to a friend's recently and I played Street Fighter 6 for the first time, which has this very street feel to it, this would be the kind of music not to fight someone, but for the minigame when you're destroying a car, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I still remember Ken's theme from, I think it was Third Strike, was extremely hip-hop.
Oh, yeah. They went into very interesting places in First Strike.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, for this one, kind of made my point on the vocals and how if you listen to a certain version of a song enough, the others kind of shifted in my perception by the absence of the climactic part, and that's interesting to me.
Yeah, no, again, it's context is key here. If I played the game, I probably would have a similar reaction because, as you said, it's how it's on the soundtrack. But again, I haven't played it, so I'm just stuck listening to the music from afar.
In a way, by us covering games soundtrack without the game all around it, there's always a little bit of something missing from our analysis, even if we personally know that's what's around there.
Yeah.
There's a listening experience that's different for the playing experience. And that's just cool.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why video game music is so cool. Like,
indeed.
But that's not ultra new either. Like, even movie soundtracks, even if they're lacking the interactivity, it evokes a different feeling when you're just listening to it versus when you're seeing it with the action on the screen. So
yeah, exactly. And like, this feels like proven ground, but at the same time, I had just a few days ago the discussion with a friend that went, "Oh, I don't like video game soundtrack," when what he really meant was, I don't like ambient soundtrack in video games and wouldn't listen to them out of a video game context.
I don't really like ambient music in video games.
Yeah,
and wouldn't listen.
Me neither.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's not... I guess...
It's a known quantity,
yeah.
So... discourse, am I right?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Now then, let's move on to the last track of our main course, of our main topic for today.
So, this one I stumbled on, I will say. And by stumbled on, I mean I had my video game music playlist on random and this song came up and I kind of just went, oh, I have a theme here. This actually works really well.
So, well, tell me more because I haven't figured out.
Okay,
and I played Miss Orochi 2.
I know you did.
AKA Warriors Orochi 3.
So this is Waltz of White Darkness, the final boss theme for the Kyubi's Revenge scenario. in Warriors Ultra 3 Ultimate.
Oh, that's Ultimate, so I may not have played that part, actually.
Yeah, this is from Ultimate.
Original.
Anything that happened post the final battle at Koshi Castle. So this is all the Tamamo no Mai and Kyubi scenario.
This is the version with 7 acts and with Sturk and Sophitia in it.
Yes. And Kasumi, because Ayane was the only one from DOA, yes. Unless you count Ryu Hayabusa, who was already a guest character from Ninja Gaiden. We're going to be at this all week if I talk about the amount of guest characters in that game. Who wasn't a guest character, however, was the song this was about, Kyubi, who was the main bad guy of Warriors Ultra 3 Ultimate.
Yeah.
However, this takes place after she's defeated. This takes place after she's sealed away. She's the one who's missing here.
Uh-huh.
And so this song is following what she's doing while she's missing.
Is it echoing the theme when she's actually there in some way?
Yes. There's a different version of this song that plays when you fight Tamamo no Mai in the main game.
Good.
Yes. No, this is actually a very good use of leitmotif. Yeah. And this is the expanded version because you're not playing as her human form, you're playing as her big, crazy fox form.
Cool.
Anyway, so the whole Warriors Ultra 3 Ultimate is tracking her down and sticking her in, like, the ancient water mirror, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And this scenario is a series of, I think, 3 or 4 stages which show what she's doing inside the mirror, which is a reflection of that world, and A, it lets her take revenge, but B, she also makes some friends.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it kind of sees what would happen if she didn't have to hate absolutely everything, but just most things. I
should replay Worlds Orochi 3 and play the Ultimate version this time.
Yeah, I kind of want to get the Steam version of that game just to go back to it. I enjoyed Warriors Orochi 4, but not as much as 3. 3 is definitely one of my favorite of the Musou franchise.
It feels like fell victim to the fact that Warriors All-Star tried to exist.
It absolutely did. The budget was split between those two games, and they both had to cut corners as a result. No, it felt like nothing. That's exactly what happened.
Exactly.
And while I will still say that Warriors Orochi 4 turned out to be a worthwhile experience, it wasn't what they could have been if they combined the budgets of those two games and just really went for it.
Indeed.
I will say I may commission a mod to throw Athena into Warriors Orochi 3 Ultimate just to have her there because she's that fun, but that's a whole other conversation.
Never got around to her.
Athena in 4 is awesome. Athena and Gaia were my 2 favorite new characters.
Well, I'll have to look what their playstyle is like one of those days.
Yeah, I would. She's a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't know. So it's interesting following a character who is the missing party here. She's no longer part of the narrative. She's off somewhere else. So that's what we're following. I just thought it was an interesting take on the concept.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if her theme is here, but she's not, it's got kind of a nerving air to it, but also the fact that when the problem person isn't there anymore, it doesn't mean all of the consequences just disappear.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. You misunderstand me. She's the playable character in this scenario. We're following her while she's missing.
Ah.
So this is like her... Yeah, sorry.
I figured it would, and I wasn't sure whether the theme was dealing with her situation posting from outside the mirror or inside the mirror.
No, this is from her situation inside the mirror. And it's basically, we were talking Star Trek earlier, so I could use this reference. It's basically the Nexus.
I see. Sounds like a fun time.
Yeah, no, Warriors Ultra 3 Ultimate is just a really good game. This made for a much better final battle than the actual, like, main game final battle, which I thought was shockingly weak, despite the concept. I feel like this is something where Warriors Ultra 4 Ultimate really kind of succeeded where 3 Ultimate actually failed, and that game's final boss was way better. Final level was way better. Unfortunately, Warriors Orochi 4 Ultimate also undoes all of this because Kyubi's just around for no stated reason. And we don't really know why, and I assume there was a different writer involved, is all I can guess at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why this person is here. Like, didn't we go through a whole game where she's, like, the main bad guy and had to go through all sorts of stuff to seal her away, but now she's just sort of around and kind of a mercenary? Like, why is that happening?
Sure, hi, come along, why are you here? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, like, the story for this game was surprisingly engaging. That doesn't mean it's exactly, like, flawless.
No. The Warriors games, let's be honest, most people aren't here for the story. That's kind of the point.
Yeah.
But when it tries,
and so
it tends...
the story is like, here's the reason why your little men are smashing against each other.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of why Dynasty Warriors 7 and Warriors Orochi 3 were kind of so special, because they really did focus on the story and largely did a good job. But yeah, no, I thought this was just an interesting take on the absence concept. Like, what if we follow the thing that is absent?
And honestly, underlining throughout the episode, the very different thing that can miss, kind of underline how many elements constitute a song and what it reflects. Like, instruments can be missing, characters, context, beats. Turns out there's a lot to a video game song. It's like there's a reason we're 65 episodes in, and we're gonna keep going.
And we're gonna keep going. Yeah, we are not short on music to discuss or concepts to discuss regarding it, which I love.
Especially given we keep playing video games and they keep releasing more of them.
And let's talk about some of those that we have just started playing then. Music Arcade, now playing. Alright.
Starting with a video game that I haven't played.
Uh-oh.
But the technical beta for Hades 2 went out, and with a pretty public sign-up, pretty easy to access apparently, but I'm waiting for the early access release.
Yeah,
however, this does mean that some of the content is out there, that is looking very good, by the way. And in particular, I went and looked at a little bit, and Erebus 2, The Revenge of Erebus, came around, and it felt too good of an include not to mention it because of how it has this missing beat every 16-bit this time. Kind of doing a double King Konga, if you will. And yeah, this just is Darren Korb visibly having fun again, and I'm only... Whoa.
Yeah, I haven't actually listened to this song. I don't know what happened to the playlist when I took my notes, but either it wasn't on there or skipped it or something. So I haven't actually listened to this song yet. But, I mean, Darren Korb kind of universally does good work, so I'm sure it's good.
Yeah, exactly. Then there is the main battle theme from Aiden Chronicle 100 Heroes.
The song sounds pretty good. I have heard mixed to negative things about the game.
I'm liking the game so far. It's not exactly a flawless experience. It does like to waste your time in tiny, annoying ways that feel oddly authentic. So, overall, I'm still very much engaged.
Okay.
And the battle theme itself, it's Sakuraba guest starring, and I just had to include it for the meme. I'm not too fond of it. It's not his best work.
He hasn't done his best work since Dark Souls 1.
Exactly.
That said, yeah, no, the song's fine. The main thing I hear about the game is that it's too much of a throwback, and basically it's missing a lot of modern quality of life features that probably would have benefited from.
It certainly does, but I kind of embrace and like it. Like, I've described it as an alternate reality Suikoden 3.
Yeah, I remember you writing that in your review on the Discord.
Yeah. And, but yeah, so far I'm having a good time, even if it means having to getting almost stuck in a dungeon because I didn't have any consumables, or using the auto battle function as much as possible just because it saves me on button presses.
Mm-hmm.
But it all feels nostalgic in a way that's not easily tangible. I'm having a good time.
Fair enough.
Then there's the boss theme for Inkbound that I really like.
I like this song a lot.
Yeah, it's very good. It does a good use of the piano as something that's very incisive in this way. And I, as a result, looked a little bit more during the research phase in the composer, Jordan Chin. And he's worked on the studio's previous game, Monster Train, which was also a very fun game. And between those two games, apparently he worked on an VR-only MMORPG, which I mentioned here because it's on his site. Apparently there was even one track with Amy Evans on there.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, exactly, which is a very good track, and I thought, given your love of the Nier soundtrack, they deserve mention.
Thank you. Yeah, not just the Nier soundtrack. Like, that's the one where she's obviously most prominent, but she did work on the first two Dark Souls games, and she did work on Ace Combat somewhere, and she did one song under a completely English name, Rebecca Evans, for Etrian Odyssey, I think? She just used her middle name.
Oh, didn't know that.
Yeah. Her full name is Emiko Rebecca Evans, and for that song in particular, they wanted it to sound properly English, so she went with Rebecca Evans on the credit, but that's her.
I see. Yeah, and as for Inkbound itself, it's really, really fun. Very well made game. It really delivers on the promise of runs that feel different despite having relatively few variables on the surface. It really encourages you to make the best out of what you find in a system that's essentially a tactical but gridless combat, kind of Makai Kingdom, if this rings any bell.
I mean, I've heard of it, but I've never played it.
Yeah, basically you have a movement range represented by a circle that shrinks as you move, instead of having a grid, and you do use that to move around and avoid enemy areas and anticipate their movements in a way similar to Slay the Spire, kind of blending those two genres and blending them quite adeptly.
Okay, cool.
It's a lot of fun, and I look forward to see where the game continues to evolve, because they're keeping at it, and I'm very happy about that. Even though what is already there is pretty fun, thankfully. Don't buy games for what they can eventually be, buy them for what they are at this moment, or to the one.
Pretty much. I think you just described everything involving No Man's Sky.
Exactly.
Because I know that was a dumpster fire of a launch, but my understanding is it's actually a really fun game now.
It's not really my style of game still, but like the Helldivers 2 lead CEO said, a game made for everyone is a game made for no one.
Pretty true.
Anyway, next game, because as it turns out, I played a lot of video games. I'm not even covering like half of those I've touched. But I've mentioned I've been to a friend's place recently, and because it released and he was interested in that, we gave a look at Sandland.
Okay.
Which is that game adaptation of Akira Toriyama's most recent non-Dragon Ball work before his unfortunate passing, and it's a very open-world action RPG with, of course, this sun motif that gives us some wonderful little desert themes, and it left a very positive first impression.
Yeah,
looking very fun. It's looking snappy, and the music is a nice mood.
I don't really have much of an opinion on the music. It meandered a lot. I couldn't really get into it, but I don't know if that's going to be something context sensitive, like or if it is going to ramp up as things happen, because the video you posted was very static.
Yeah.
Like the character didn't really go anywhere. So it's hard for me to get a feel for it at this point.
Like, as a battle music, it doesn't work. As an ambient music, it does.
I will definitely agree with that.
I don't quite remember which it is, and the video says in-game /battle music, so I'm slightly confused and cannot trust my memory. What I can trust my memories on is the last track, which is a Hatsune Miku song I put on there, no doubt confusing you slightly, because it's part of the Hatsune Miku DLC for Crypt of the NecroDancer again. They added her as a playable character with unique mechanics, which are very hard to handle, by the way, very hard to play, and this track feels like it's almost taunting you in this way, because it's the track that plays at the start of the hardest area in the game, the 4th zone, and it's happy Spanish lyrics fiesta song. So that feels almost like a provocation, even though apparently one of the main factors the team had in selecting the tracks that would go in the soundtrack was the proximity between the BPMs of the Crypt of the NecroDancer soundtrack and the songs they pick level by level, in order to not have that much of a difference between the intended original experience and the Miku song they're picking. With, of course, the exception of the 2 tracks that were created specifically for the games. And they're pretty interesting, and it would have been probably a more soundtrack-y pick to put one of those in the playlist.
Right.
But playing the game made me realize there is a Spanish language Miku song called that is used in this game, and I couldn't not mention it. I'm only human, right?
No, I get. Yeah, well, you are. She isn't.
Indeed.
I can't. I have tried a few times now to listen to Vocaloids, and I hear the 1s and 0s way too loudly, and I can't.
Yeah, I get it. It's very, like, if nothing else, I imagine it's probably easier to get along to actual people covering songs that were first composed for Vocaloid than it is to get into the originals themselves.
Like, honestly, it is the technicals of it. Like, I'm a microphone guy. I am all about recording people in specific ways and recording chains, and it just sounds wrong to my ears, my actual audio engineer ears. So, like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm very much the opposite of the target audience.
And thankfully, from what I've seen, even though I'm not diving that deep into it, the community around that seems generally very good about crediting and letting you see who composed who for what, who refers to who, and I like this. Just even seeing it from the outside, this community aspect warms the heart a little.
Yeah.
Even if I am indeed not that much of a fan of the Vocaloid voice by itself.
Yeah, no, nothing... until they devolve into K-pop Stanland, I'm not overly concerned by the...
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah. But yeah, no, so far that community does seem chill, and I got nothing against it on a personal level. It's just not... Yeah. It's just not for me, sound-wise, sonically.
Yeah, no, entirely fair. And it's mostly not for me either. Though I will say that apparently they had fun using the Vocaloid program in itself, not just in the songs composed and what they've picked, but also for making the sound effect for when you play the character, which can lead to fun things like her saying hello in a very musical way when coming to the upgrade shop. And on the other side, the way they unnecessarily prolong her cries of death in a way that haunts me to this day.
Yeah, no, that was a really, like, you played that sound effect and I'm like, they went there? Wow, okay.
I was shocked, like, I'm not sure if you like or hate her.
That's definitely one of those moments where I have some questions for the sound designer, and that might be on that list.
Yes, very much so. But overall, fun times.
Yeah.
Now, what have you played on your end?
Well, I'm going to start with the usual Arknights music review, but this time we got an older song that came back in a very new way. So imagine you're in a volcano, and...
Okay.
You're fighting incredibly difficult tanky enemies, and all of a sudden this, like, crazy super boss shows up, and you gotta figure out how to deal with that guy.
Well, it's time to panic or buckle down and get hardcore.
Pretty much. So, instead of doing new music for this event called Design of Strife, they actually took music from an older event, and I had no recollection of this particular song because they took it from one of the easiest event bosses in the game's history.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I literally,
giving
when I
it
heard
a second chance, kind of.
Yeah. So when I heard this song in the Design of Strife event, I'm like, man, this is a banger. It sounds like the same guy who composed the Rat King's music, right? So I literally go on the subreddit and I'm like, I can identify this song. I don't know, like, I seem to recall it was a boss music. I know I've heard it before.
Oh.
And someone's like, isn't that Pancho Salas' boss music from DeSola's Holiday? I'm like, wait, really? I go back and listen to it, and yeah, it's the Breezy Summer event. And this is the boss music from the Breezy Summer event. Which I didn't remember because Pancho Salas is a joke.
I see.
And they used it, again, for not a joke.
Yeah, and it's like we said a little bit earlier in the episode. Turns out the context in which a music is used matters a lot.
Yeah. So this one gave me kind of a blast from the past in the best possible way, and not in a BS way, like what happened.
Yeah, it's not nostalgia bait or anything.
No, it's not nostalgia bait, and it's not probably one of the biggest music quote unquote flubs in Arknights was during the Monster Hunter collaboration, and I talked about this when it happened, but it just reminded me of this, where somehow they still had the rights to collaborate with Monster Hunter and to release the characters involved in the collaboration, but they lost the rights to the song Proof of a Hero.
Oh.
So after the first 2 days of the event, the song was patched out and replaced with an old CC track.
Well, that's one way to cover absences as well.
Right?
Like, that's the extreme instant panic version of the Metal Gear song.
Right? So I'm not exactly sure.
But a little bit stupider.
A little bit stupider. I'm not exactly sure what happened between Hypergriff and Capcom on this one. I just know that, like, the collaboration didn't stop. We still got the event. I still have the Kieran and Rathalos characters, and I still have my 1-star Palicos. But yeah, no, the song was taken out, and they had to reuse older music to fill in that gap because it's Arknights. They're not going to have stages with no music. That's like a crime.
Rights issues are weird.
Rights issues are weird. So this was definitely a case where reusing an older track was reused in the right way. And I feel like it gave this song way more love because now I mentally associate it with the big demon guy and not with Pancho Salas, a terrorist without a clue.
Yep, checks out.
Yep. Next up, I have Valheim, which is a game that was actually the runner-up on the Christmas special, but I was very surprised by the amount of community reaction to the game, because I just did not think it was something that this community was going to be into. So we set up a server.
I've played it on my own a little bit and enjoyed my time with that.
Yeah. Rai set up a server, and we've been playing it, and it's pretty good. It's got some flaws, but it's, I'm certainly not disliking it, and it's got a pretty cool soundtrack, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
This particular song has some samples issues, but the composition's there.
Yeah, it goes hard. It accompanies well the way boss fights can go into full panic mode at times.
Yeah. And
especially if you don't come fully prepared.
Oh, yeah. Also, I gotta say, if in the if you're combining like being grim and edgy while also incorporating heavy metal, this does so much of a better job incorporating heavy metal into a metal-inspired visuals than Slain Back from Hell did by a wide margin. I keep coming back to how mediocre Slain was as a game. And finally, we have Chained Echoes, which is much like Aiden Chronicle 100 Heroes, a throwback RPG.
Very much so.
Yeah. This one, on the other hand, is actually, like, shockingly tight.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very surprised by how some of these systems interconnect in very cool ways.
Yeah.
And it's definitely
really does a great job at being an interesting game.
Yeah.
Probably the most interesting in a game sense of the three big JRPG throwbacks game we had recently with that Sea of Stars and Aiden Chronicles.
I've heard good things about Sea of Stars. I am looking forward to eventually playing that.
I have my objections on this one.
Fair enough.
But at the same time, I have to admit that it's the prettiest of the three. Like, the pixel art in there is obscene at times.
Honestly, Chained Echoes looks pretty great as well, I've got to be honest.
It's really solid.
And it's definitely a love letter to, like, not just one RPG. I've seen elements from a bunch of them in here.
Oh, yeah.
Strangely enough, for something that really throws back to the Super Nintendo and PS1 era, the biggest plot influence seems to be FF12, which was PS2.
Yeah.
Musically, however, it actually has more in common with Falcom than anything else. It's got that same kind of chill, breezy battle theme that Trails of the Sky has.
Yep. I didn't make the connection. You're more of a Falcon guy than me, but yeah, I can absolutely see it.
Yeah. But honestly, I've been very impressed by just about everything in this game. The one thing I don't like is still something that works very well. I just think it's a little too fiddly for my taste.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the overdrive meter, which is a constant a constant thing in combat. It's one of those things that can get very annoying, especially if I get distracted.
Yeah, it kind of prevents you from doing what you want. I think it works better with the mech suits fight than it does for the ground fight.
I would absolutely agree with that. Which is funny because it's a lot less involved in the mech suits fight when you're in your gears.
Which is probably why it feels less like you have to babysit the gauge with one hand while actually playing the game you want to play with the other.
Yeah. I will say my biggest complaint about the game is that it randomly just veers into really immature territory.
Yes.
And I'm like, wait, why is this happening right now? We were doing so good, and then all of a sudden this is happening. Why?
Yeah, it does have some tonal inconsistencies.
Yeah. But honestly, like, yeah, I'm enjoying this game a lot more than I thought I would, given the reviews I'd read on it. So I'm really glad.
I should come back to it, especially since I believe I left it off around the time you are at right now.
I'm early...
Just because of what released and so on.
Yeah, I'm early Act 3 right now, and I'm enjoying it. I'm hoping I can beat it before I get to Vegas. I think that's my overall hope. That's my goal.
All right. Well, the best way for you to get back to that would be to end the episode right now, then.
You say that, but I'm pretty sure we're playing Valheim tonight. Yeah.
I remembered that while saying it, and... Heck it, that's an excuse for a transition anyway.
Fair enough. Yeah, let's go ahead. I think we've run out of time for this episode. Thank you all so much.
I'm not above a little lie.
Fair enough. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As usual, you can find the link to our playlist as well as our contact information in the description below. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you all next time for the next episode of Music Arcade. Have a good one, y'all.
See ya.